Daily List, the top 5 catchers in Yankee history. Number 5, we start with Jorge Posada, 5-time All-Star, of course, a staple of 3 of the 4 championships during this latest Yankee dynasty. Also a great clubhouse leader. Number 4, Elston Howard, made the All-Star team in 9 seasons, won the MVP in 1963. Number 3, Thurman Munson, the captain, won the Rookie of the Year, played in 7 All-Star games and won an MVP award. Helped keep those Yanks together during those Bronx Zoo days, winning 2 World Series until his tragic death almost 30 years ago today. Number 2, Bill Dickey, the Hall of Famer and 11-time All-Star, was a cornerstone of those Bomber dynasties in the late 20s through the 30s into the early 40s. Long dynasties. Number 1, Yogi Berra. Didn't get late very early for this Hall of Famer. Yogi won 3 MVP awards and was an All-Star 15 times while winning all of those championships with the Yanks in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. That's my list. Either of you guys have any issues?
Charlie Silvera?
It's an excellent point. It's an excellent point.
Nice.
A man who might have issues, well, with my list could be Marty Appel, the former Yankee PR director, general Yankee expert, and author of Munson, The Life and Death of a Yankee Captain. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, guys. It's great to be on with you.
All right, let's talk about this. You had written about Thurman earlier, many years ago. You wanted to write about this book for a long time, but you didn't because it was too painful. Is this right, to go back and listen to the tapes?
Not exactly. I mean, essentially, I did his autobiography with him in in 77, 78. And people would come up over the years and say, oh, I love the book, great book. And in my heart, I knew there was a much better story to be told. He, you know, you do an autobiography with a guy and he says, does it have to be personal? You kind of think there's going to be some stuff left out. And there was. He's a much more interesting, complex guy than the autobiography would lead you to believe. So all these years, I had hoped for the opportunity to tell the full story, because with the passage of time, he's become like an American sports icon and worthy of a full biography. I think it was the airing of The Bronx is Burning with Eric Jensen's portrayal of Thurman that got people interested in him again. And that got my agent, Rob Wilson, interested in talking to Doubleday, and one thing led to another, and we got the book.
When you did hear those tapes, was there a great emotion that came out of you? I mean, I'm sure it had been many years since you had listened.
I hadn't listened. We did 12 hours of tapes when we did the autobiography. I hadn't listened to them in a long time, and I knew there wasn't a lot there, but I wanted to get his voice back in my head as I started the writing project. So it was emotional to listen to him because I did it sitting right next to him.
Bill, go ahead.
Well, I was curious. I don't know if you're as curious about this as I am, but it seems like the Yankees are distancing themselves from that whole 70s group. It started when Buck Showalter ran Catfish out of camp. He didn't want him around as an instructor, and that got a lot of the other guys upset. And Cashman fired Ron Guidry last year. He keeps Reggie Jackson at an arm's length. Roy White has had his issues with his team. I'm wondering if Thurman were alive today, if that would be the case because of Thurman's strong personality and just the way he was, or maybe he wouldn't even be around either.
I think he might have been the most applauded guy from that era, he or Reggie, you know, on an old-timers day if he was out there. It's the nature of teams to respond to the fans hearing, like with the Mets, the '86 team now gets a lot more attention than the '69 team. And that's because their fans are younger and they cheer louder, and that's what the Yankees are experiencing now with their teams from the '90s compared to those teams from the '70s.
I got to ask you about the relationship between Thurman Munson and Reggie Jackson, because depending on what you've read or what you've seen, you talked about The Bronx is Burning, it's never been portrayed all that favorably. There's no question they were different guys, but how accurate is the relationship as we understand it? Did they really not like each other at all?
Well, that magazine story, which is so famous now, The Straw That Stirs the Drink, obviously drove a wedge between them, hurt Reggie a lot more than it hurt Thurman. The team sort of migrated to their guy, the captain, Thurman, and he suddenly had 24 best friends. But, you know, they worked it out over time. In Thurman's last year, Reggie flew with him. Reggie, at his own expense, went to Canton, Ohio for a testimonial dinner for him. They found a way to work things out because Thurman knew Reggie was a winner. He was going to take him to new heights.
All right. Obviously, August 2nd, 1979 was the day of Thurman's crash and death. Do you remember where you were?
I was working at MLB. It was late afternoon. News didn't travel as instantaneously as today. So a lot of people had already left the office. Call came in from Mr. Steinbrenner trying to speak to Commissioner Bowie Kuhn, and I had just by chance fielded that call. And you know, I get a chill still thinking of that call today because of hearing Mr. Steinbrenner's voice the way it was.
Take a while to sink in.
A lot of us were at Shea Stadium that day.
Well, that was an interesting thing because the Mets were playing a doubleheader with the Phillies, and in the press box, Arthur Richmond, the PR director, gets this bulletin. Now, what is he going to do? Is he going to tell the fans? Is he going to... I mean, they could do nothing. They could do a PA announcement. They could do a scoreboard thing, and they put it on the scoreboard, and the place just fell into total silence. It was like never a moment like that in a ballpark.
Great photo of that in the book.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, we appreciate you giving us a few minutes. Just want to mention you have book signings coming up Thursday at lunchtime at Mickey Mantle's, and then Sunday at 3 p.m. the Yogi Berra Museum out in Montclair, New Jersey.
Yes.
Marty, thank you so much for coming in. Marty Appel, The Life and Death of a Yankee Captain. Munson is the book. Still to come, Roy Halladay making the start today for the Blue Jays, but was it his last start north of the border, and where could Halladay be going before...